الله يفتح عليك. The final, I just want before we get to the questions and so on, I want to make clear that Sheikh, and this is something even from the time of Sheikh Muhammad Ghazali wrote and taught that in this day and age it is no longer sufficient that we evaluate reports simply through chains of transmission or in words, in the way we put it, historically, or through an evaluation of the historical narratives. But if you are a theologian or a jurist, as opposed to a historian, it is also imperative that you evaluate the method in terms of its place in the context of the Islamic message. So, for instance, when you read in Bukhari a report like لولا بني إسرائيل لم يكنز اللحم, if it hadn't been for the Banu Israel Jews, that meat would have never rotted. Yaknaz means the meat rotting. Regardless of the chain of transmission of a report like that, this is a situation where the place of intuition vis-a-vis potential revelation, and especially potential revelation in which the potentiality is rather low. I have no difficulty in saying that the reason trumps this potential revelation, and it's because, and again, it's not really reason trumps, but it's rational analysis, the mechanisms of reasons, says that there is no way that this can be reconciled with so much of what is inherent in the Islamic message in a moral, normative way. And then again, I emphasize the role of a theologian, or the role of a jurist, or the role of a philosopher, as opposed to the role of a historian. There are, of course, you find fascinating predecessors to this discussion. I found a discussion in Ibn Qutayba's Gharib al-Hadith about the rationality of the tradition about the fly. If a fly falls and you drink, and especially that what some have said that the disease is on one wing and the cure is on the other, is complete scientific nonsense. I mean, it has no scientific basis whatsoever, but yet in the state of intellectual retardation that Muslims live in, you still find Muslims saying it as if it is true. And the analysis of the method of these traditions is a critical step. And again, I'm not, I would never support the idea of publishing Bukhari cleansed from offending traditions, because that in itself would be a huge moral offense. It is a moral obligation to preserve the integrity of the text. one of the things that we had not explored is various uh, uh, m- m- uh, manuscript, varying manuscripts of Bukhari that actually include or not include certain hadiths. I mean, I think this would be fascinating doctoral dissertation that tracks all. I have at home at the library in Van Nuys a manuscript of uh, a volume or a part of Bukhari that is quite old. And in going through it, I've already noticed that there are variations from the published, printed Bukhari. This would be a very interesting dissertation that would require uh, uh, a lot of hard work in tracking down the various manuscripts and reading them and comparing them and analyzing why do we have uh, certain traditions included in, or dropped and so on and so forth. But anyway, I read questions that you've written down, and of course there were, because you're smart people, there were so many of them that I've decided the idea of writing there's no way I can address questions that were written down. There are just too many of them. So I'm gonna just give you the floor to ask whatever you wish to ask. So you can ask anything that you've written down or anything that you just thought of now.
And we're going to allow about now 35 minutes or so.
So I think it was yesterday you mentioned that Islamic theology needs a lot of rethinking. And I was wondering, I mean, obviously one of the central sort of themes of these 3 days has been Husn al-Qubh, which is dealt with in Islamic theology. And you also touched a little bit the first day. I mean, I think just one of the examples was the idea of predestination and the idea of things that we assume are so fundamental to our faith are the things that we should especially be investigating and addressing the most. But aside from the issue of Husn al-Qubh, or even on this issue, what did you mean by rethinking Islamic theology?
Well, I mean, theology is a big word because once it is presented as part of the dogma of articles of faith, so once you say that this is what a Muslim must believe, then you are engaging in a theological enterprise. And so when you say that the Sihah al-Khams, that's theology. And so when I said rethinking Islamic theology, I meant it in the broad sense that even saying reopening the issue of the canonical status of particular books as containing what the Prophet in fact articulated, that's rethinking theology. But there are people that start out as theologians and then study history and find history so perplexing that they deconstruct themselves as theologians and become non-theological theologians, if that makes any sense. So, an example of that is my late, he passed away for a friend, Shihab Ahmed. Shihab, may Allah forgive him, غفر الله له, with that meaning, not may Allah forgive him in another sense, but غفر الله له. Started out initially with a certain theological outlook and jurisprudential outlook, but started as a good student at Princeton, learned a historical method, particularly from Michael Cook, and he was struck by the remarkable plurality in competing narrations, and was so struck by the plurality of competing narratives of so many things that when he wrote his book, What is Islam?, he even challenged the idea of Al-Arkan al-Khams, that there are 5 pillars to Islam, and challenged the idea that that Islamicity rests on that fundamental to Islam are 5 prayers, or Sawm Ramadan, or Hajj, or and so on, and reaches sort of a minimalist perspective in saying, well, it is Islam, it is Islamic, because he insists that it is not simply Muslim, but it is Islamic. If you effectively adopt rules of belonging, so effectively a form of an ideological affinity to the identity of being a Muslim, but other than that, emptied of all substantive laws and most substantive beliefs. And I vehemently think that this is in my view, this is not good historiography, nor obviously good theology. I mean, he didn't intend, when he wrote the book that Princeton published, What is Islam?, he didn't intend it as a theological work, but, well, I mean, it's interesting because he says that I write this book so that Muslims understand that what is Islamic, and that what is Islamic is not what they believe is Islamic, and he brings examples of so many things that attempts to challenge anything that is Islamic, including so on and so on. And I think this is really a situation where if complete breakdown in the process of tarjih. I mean, this is it's as if you say all evidence to me is equal and of same weight, and I think that's problematic. It effectively says because there is evidence of human disagreements and dissent, then that means the phenomena had no reality, or had a reality that is not discoverable. So I reach a state of tawaqquf, I reach a state of suspension of judgment as to anything. And that is counter to a Muslim theologian or jurist as a moral agent, as an agent that is charged with an obligation of understanding what rububiyyah is, what this Allah as a Rabb is, and Allah as an intelligent agent speaking to us, giving us commands. So when we have in the text that Rabb saying, talking about Salah and talking about salawat and salawat in certain, with references to certain periods of time, or those who are spend the night and day sujada or qiyamah and so on and so forth, that this Rabb cannot be speaking nonsense. Effectively, if you reach this position of complete relativism and complete subjectivity, you must adopt the position also that this Rabb speaks and the speech means nothing, or the meaning is entirely contingent on whoever the reader is. And if the reader reads Salah and understands Salah to mean I go and get drunk and think of God, then that's as good as the report, the numerous reports that tell us that Salah meant ruku' and sujood and so on. I would say that is the very embodiment of irrationality, because irrational agent evaluates evidence. And just because you find a poet in some historical epoch that makes a reference to Salah, their Salah, as becoming intoxicated and reaching God, that doesn't somehow neutralize or otherwise impeach the other evidence to the contrary. If we use even an usuli method of evidence, we say, well, at least we accept what is ما تواتر عن الرسول, as they reach the state of tawatur. In other words, we have many individuals reporting it to many individuals who report it to many individuals. We will end up with and this is after years of looking at this material, my conviction is that you end up with a core substance that is a thoroughly moral message. I'm also, you didn't ask this, but I'm going to throw it in. There are some who try to solve this problem by saying, okay, well, we take what is in Mecca, because the Mecca period has moral exhortations without question, and then we leave everything that is in the Medina period. And I think, again, that is the type of, it assumes a prophecy in which God is so disengaged in this prophecy that God is navigating this prophecy only for the first 10 years and then disengaged from the other 10 years, which again is inconsistent with the text of the Quran itself. Rather, the more